It's a terrible experience, which was by design. This is exactly what we wanted.
Terms and conditions. The Transsolar podcast for the Biennale Architettura 2025. Episode 1. Welcome to the first episode of our Transsolar podcast. Today we talk about Terms and Conditions, a fascinating installation at the Biennale 2025 in Venice. It makes climate change tangible, feelable. My name is Martin Prösler, and in this episode we want to explore the concept of the installation and unfold some of the stories behind the obvious. My guests are Jochen Lam, engineer and partner of Transsolar, and Bilge Kobas, architect at the Technical University of Munich.
Hi, Martin.
Hi, Martin.
Your installation is right at the entrance of the Arsenale, so it's at the thematic center of this year's Biennale. I think Carlo Ratti, the curator, he put the installation there to make some kind of wake-up call. What do you think about it, and what do the visitors feel, and what do they see when they enter your installation? It consists of 2 rooms. Let's start with the first room.
When the visitors enter the first room, they find themselves in a very dimly lit environment. It's very different than what you experienced a second ago outside. And then when you kind of adjust to the darkness, you start realizing there are some AC units hung from the ceiling. They're suspended in the darkness. And then you start walking through them. And as you go further, it gets more and more crowded. You find yourself surrounded by more and more units. And then you start feeling hot and humid, and it gets louder. And until you go through the second room, you probably don't even understand why. And this is just the entrance of the Arsenale.
There's another conceptual layer on that that is maybe less obvious. So it's also a time journey from a summer day in Venice, from today, to a summer day in 2100 in Venice. And I think the visitors can also perceive like how visually the amount of AC units or density of AC units getting more and more crowded. And the same thing basically happens with temperature.
So at what temperature do we arrive at the end of the century in the installation?
So according to a calculation from the ETH Zurich, it's going to be around roughly 42 degrees.
42 degrees, so that's really hot.
Absolutely, it's pretty hot, yeah.
But just tell me, you're a climate engineer, and I think normally you organize the layers of hot air in a vertical form, yeah? But this has to be done in a horizontal form. I think this is not really easy to do.
It's true. I mean, in this case, we were trying to do something against the physics. Because like vertically, you can generate stable layers of temperature, but horizontally, air basically starts to move if you have different temperature at different spaces in horizontal wise. So you will get a convection and air starts to mix, and what happens is they just even out and you have a stable, like a uniform temperature in the room. So for us, as we wanted to create that time journey, the question was, how are we going to do that? So what we did to create that impression of a time journey and this horizontal gradient of temperature is to use the heat rejection of the AC units at the very back of or close to the exit to create that base heat. But in addition, to control it like very accurately which temperature should appear, we use radiant heating panels, because with that we can just control where the heat appears.
So now these people are coming to the end of the century, literally. And they're leaving the room, they're coming to the next room. What is the experience?
Yeah, when they exit from the end of the century to the second room, it is actually back to today, back to the standards of today, because it's such a cool in the sense of thermal, comfortable room, because this is where we place the indoor AC units. You see them in an array on the wall, and they're just blowing cold air on your face. It's not loud, it's not humid anymore, it's not hot anymore. And we noticed most people actually spend more time in the second room than they did in the first room.
Oh, I can
because
imagine.
It's the moment of relief. Yes, exactly. It's the moment of relief where you hopefully also reflect back on the experience you had a few seconds ago and understand the connection from your feeling now and your feeling before. Because then you understand, that these are the perfect conditions as we are used to framing them. It is the comfort you're experiencing, you have the relief, you enjoy it, but you just walk through the cost of it. You just walk through the world that we created to achieve this comfortable, joyful room when you exit into the second room.
So what is the meaning of terms and conditions in this case? I start understanding a bit, but please explain it. Please explain it.
We have a certain expectation of comfort today. It's not luxury, it's the standard right now, the way we see it. And we rarely actually think about how it is provided for us, either as users or even as architects. We don't really question everything that goes into it and everything it costs to the environment. But it's as simple as this. If you take out heat from one space, it has to go somewhere. So where does it go? We as users or as architects most of the times ignore it. And someone else is paying that price for our comfort. So we wanted to point to that this whole balance, this whole behavior is just like clicking on accept without reading the fine print on any terms and conditions text. And maybe it is time we actually read it and question what's written there before we keep accepting. So it's a wordplay about that.
So it's about everyday life. It's in the installation not only a focus on making climate change tangible, but also to let it focus on these project decisions, ongoing project decisions, also probably in your projects.
Absolutely, Martin. I think there's a total relation to that. Like there are different definitions of comfort. And what happened is because we used machines to make it work. Right. And that doesn't have anything to do with what we built before that, because in times where we weren't able to control everything that accurately, we just use smart design to create an environment that works. Mm-hmm. Like this is the first thing that we can do very easily without any smart technical solution to basically reduce the amount of energy we need and also reduce basically the cost that Bilge just mentioned.
Mm-hmm. I think this installation is really fantastic. Yeah, I think this installation should be in all major cities because then people could go there, can experience that. And I think it would have an impact, could at least have an impact on decision making.
I mean, we would be absolutely happy to do that installation also in other countries. So call us. No, I think absolutely. I think it makes people aware. It creates just an awareness that things are not for free, and a comfort that we have is not for free. We have to pay for it, and usually it's the environment that is paying for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think it's also really important to bring this message into a tangible emotional experience, because I think the public is used to hearing certain numbers. There's 1.5 degrees, there are different numbers, there are different graphs that we see. Some of them are really good at explaining what's happening, but I think feeling it is a completely different level. And maybe especially the decision makers should have to go through this when they're making the decisions related to the environment. So it's not just, talking the talk, but also walking the walk. If you go this way, or if you continue the business as usual, okay, this is what it will feel like, and if this is okay for you, if this is okay for your children, let's test it out. It is then very personal, and I think this has been one of the missing parts of the whole climate science communication so far.
I'm 100% on your side. I think really it's a great idea to work it out in this form. And could you please explain a bit more, Bilge, what is the situation there? And how are the people responding to your installation there?
Well, it's, by their words, it's a terrible experience, which was by design. This is exactly what we wanted. We wanted to create a realistically dystopic environment. I know this sounds like an oxymoron, but it actually is. The numbers, the temperature, they come from a scientific simulation. It does feel dystopian, but no, this is where we're leading to. And I think when people read more about it, they understand it, but the visceral feeling of how uncomfortable it is, and then the fact that most of them spend more time in the second room, just relieved, is kind of funny. And I think that's part of the I would say our biggest successes, or personally for me, making people really, really react to it. I think that was very important, and I feel like we achieved it.
Exactly. I mean, this is basically what we wanted to achieve, right? Like people feeling uncomfortable, and basically the reaction is that you wanted to leave that place as fast as possible. And like every visitor that came out of our installation was like going through like that through our curtain, and you always heard that like the relief.
The relief, yeah.
Yeah, we should have recorded those relief sounds. It's almost like a commercial, but I think that's the perfect summary of the whole experience. The at the end.
Oh, wonderful! And just tell me, on the in the installation, there are also water basins on the floor. What is the meaning then?
Mm-hmm. It is actually not by us. So the first room was divided vertically into two different installations. We were mainly responsible for the upper part, and the lower part was done by Pistoletto, who's a famous Italian architect. And they contributed with these water basins that reach up to 7 centimeters high. And basically the message there is the sea level rise predictions for the end of the century. And of course, it was really interesting for us because the body of water, it's a large body of water in the room. It brought several things. First of all, technically, it brought humidity. And that was something we also wanted to portray as part of the climatic experience. So it contributes to the heat that you're feeling. And something that happened naturally, we already started seeing some mosquitoes, some little flies inside the room.
But that wasn't part of the design, or?
No, it was not at all my intention, but we were very happy to see them because that's what we wanted to showcase, right? That things will happen, and this is how it's going to happen if we continue, and we will have more mosquitoes. It's going to be more and more uncomfortable, and it's going to be a negative feedback loop. And I think the second thing that came with the water is the emotional feeling. I think it contributed to the experience greatly because the water surface is now acting like a huge reflection. And then you see the AC units hanging from the ceiling, but you also see their reflection from the rippling water, and the dimensions become a bit confusing, and then you really feel even more immersed into the whole atmosphere. And then when you reach at the end of the room, there is a big mirror wall. And as you get closer, you start seeing yourself too. And I think that was one of the things we wanted to achieve, to make you, the visitor, a part of it. It's a bit putting you on the spot in a way, but it's another way of saying that, hey, all of us are responsible for this. and then you see yourself sweating, uncomfortable, but you also know, yep, I'm part of it. I have contributed to this as much as anyone else I see around me.
Right. I can imagine even the rise of the sea level is very impressive, because if people come from the outside, they know when they walk along the canal, what is the height of the water, and they can imagine sea level is rising and there's some wind, there's some waves coming, so they feel much more intense about the climate change. But tell me, how do these installations work together? Because there must be a concept behind that, what 𝗙𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 made.
Yeah, actually it's also quite interesting, because our main idea or main message was more of a warning sign. Maybe our message is a bit darker, but 𝗙𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀's message is more of a hope for the future. He intends to end it with a hopeful position when you reach. So us trying to make people uncomfortable, warn them of what's coming, and him saying, hey, if we manage to find a good balance between natural and the man-made, it will be fine. We can make things work again. So it sounds like they're contradicting, but I think they come together in a really poetic way, in a sense.
I understand, and I understand that this installation is really complex. So, who was involved? Who was doing what?
Yeah, we had a pretty broad team, Martin, because we needed different expertises for this installation. And the job of us of Transsolar was to coordinate all these expertise, all these people, and of course doing the engineering part. And then there's TUM.
So, Technical University of Munich?
Exactly. Bilge is part of TUM, and she is our leading designer. And Sebastian was from TUM as well. We had, for the conceptual design, Barber, Dehlia, and Alex, Auer as well. And they basically kind of gave input into that, like conceptual-wise, message-wise. And then there was 𝗙𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, mentioned already before. They did the modeling of the predicted future. And in the end, of course, the DGMB, who supported us in funding the installation.
That means DGMB, the German Sustainable Building Council, was supporting you and the installation, correct?
Exactly, yeah.
So thank you very much, Jochen and Bilge, for being here and for sharing these exciting details of your installation.
Thanks, Martin.
Thanks, it was a lot of fun.
You've been listening to Terms and Conditions, the Transsolar podcast, brought to you by Transsolar Energietechnik and TUM, Chair of Building Technology and Climate Responsive Design. Production by Prösler Studio. Stay tuned for the next episode as we delve deeper with the Biennale curator 𝗙𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 and Thomas Auer from Transsolar and TUM.